This video is sponsored by Zaptec.
There has been a lot of hype lately around the brand new Hyundai Ioniq 5N. Here on the channel, I've already done a range test to test its efficiency, and I've also put it through my long trip test to see how this car performs while taken on a long trip or on a road trip. In one of those videos, the car did okay. I wasn't too impressed, but in the other test, it actually impressed me a lot and performed very well. So if you want to see how this car, performs as a pure electric car when it comes to range and efficiency, I'll link those videos down below. But in this video, we're going to answer the question, is this car worth all the hype? Are the augmented sounds and also the gear changing experience of an 8-speed dual clutch transmission just gimmick? Or are they actually fun? How good is the Hyundai Ioniq 5N in the real world? Compared to a normal Ioniq 5, this N version is a lot more aggressive and sporty when it comes to the exterior styling. Yes, this still keeps, that same basic shape, this crossover SUV, big hatchback type of style. This car in the real world is a lot bigger than it seems in photos. In photos, it looks to be the same size as a Volkswagen Golf, but in reality, it's pretty much the same size as a Tesla Model Y. So don't let the photos, trick you. So it still keeps, that same basic shape, but the front end is much more aggressive. So you get a blacked out Hyundai badge there. You get also this N badging, a much more aggressive front end, a completely different front bumper with lower spoilers. You have this, sporty orange trim on the bottom. You also have vents here for both cooling and also vents to make the car more aerodynamic. I saw a video of Misha at the Nürburgring, and he had some kind of engineer with him who knows a lot about aero, and they were talking about the aero is both functional for downforce, front and rear, but also for aerodynamics to make this car as efficient as possible. So they really put a lot of time into the exterior of this car, not only for styling, but also for proper aero and aerodynamics. You have these flared wheel arches front and rear, these unique 21-inch wheels, and also these big end brakes. You have that orange, stripe at the bottom, and then you also have that, kick plate at the rear door, and also at the very rear, you have a unique rear spoiler, a unique rear bumper with a really big and aggressive rear diffuser. Overall, I think this just looks super mean, super cool, and the week I've had this car, it's been getting a lot of attention. I don't think it's only because of this baby blue color, but I think people just look at it and they see this is something completely different to what they're used to seeing from an electric car.
Before we continue this video, I just want to give a huge thanks to Zaptec with their Zaptec Go for sponsoring today's video. The Zaptec Go is a small, cool, and stylish home charger that can charge up to 22 kilowatts and will work with every electric car on the market, including a Tesla. The Zaptec Go is so good, it actually won Best in Test in the Norwegian Automobile Association's test of chargers in 2022. So if you want to support the channel, if you want one of the best chargers on the market, go to the link down below, find your country, click on the link and purchase one from there.
I've reviewed the normal Hyundai Ioniq 5 on several occasions. I've talked in depth about the interior, the room in the front cabin, the rear cabin, the trunk, also just the infotainment system here, and also the general perception of quality in this interior. And for the most part, this is identical to the normal Hyundai Ioniq 5, so I'm not going to talk about that too much here in detail. Its interior I like, it's room in the front, it's room in the rear, the trunk is big, so this is just about as spacious as anything else in this class. And also, fit and finish and build is pretty nice for this price point. Nothing special, but it's not bad either. This though, being the N version, it does have a few niceties that are unique to this car. So first off, you have these really cool bucket seats with N badging here, which we first saw in the Kia EV6, which is this car's cousin, and I really like them. They are manually adjustable, but they actually have heating and cooling, and they're comfortable, though after a few hours on the road in my long trip test, I found the bottom a little bit hard to sit on. So maybe for longer trips, they're not the best. Also, you have this unique steering wheel to the Ioniq 5N. I haven't seen this in any other Hyundai or Kia product, and I really like it. It's a sporty 3-spoke design, and you also have, a few buttons here. You have drive modes on top. You have this NGB, which is a boost button, which, bumps the power from 600 to 641 for 10 seconds. You also have 2 N mode buttons here, which I think you can customize, though I haven't been able to adjust the settings. When I go into the infotainment system and I adjust them and then I press the button again, they always reset back to some kind of preset. So I don't know what that's about, but yeah. You also have paddles behind the steering wheel here, which, adjust regen, but when you're in the N mode, which gives you the manual transmission, these are actually paddle shifters. We're going to get back to that later because that's part of what makes this car special. And this also has a center console where the normal Ioniq 5N has a console here which you can remove. And they made this because they wanted to give the car a more like a cockpit feeling, and I actually prefer this to the normal Ioniq 5. I think this is a really cool addition, and I think all of these changes just makes this car special and unique from a normal Ioniq 5. When I've been driving this car for a week now, I just hop into it with the blue stitching here on the doors and on the dashboard and just the unique bits. This car just feels special and different to a normal Ioniq 5, and I think they've nailed it. The infotainment system, though, is an upgrade. This is what we first saw in the Kia EV9 late last year, so it looks much cleaner. It's easier to use, but still, it's far from my favorite to use in the business. It's still very cumbersome. It's still not intuitive. And there are a lot of infotainment systems that are a lot easier and better to use than this. On top of that, this has N modes. So you go into a normal N menu, which is separate from your drive mode menus, which is just very confusing. So you have drive modes and then you have N drive modes, and then you can customize, but I haven't been able to change the settings of these 2 buttons, which they say here are customizable, custom 1 and 2. I may be an idiot and I'm just completely misunderstanding what 1 and 2 is, but when I go into some of these and I adjust the settings here, they never go to my adjusted settings. They always go to some kind of preset. So I don't know what that is about. So interior really good, infotainment system still not good, and the N implementation of the N drive modes and all the performance settings, pretty bad in my opinion. In eco mode, this car goes 2-wheel drive and the throttle response is pretty lethargic, pretty slow, and the car still makes this weird noise. But if you go into this menu here, not drive mode menu, but into this N mode, and then you go into N shift, and then you turn off. How do you do it? You go, it's so confusing, this thing here. No, here, off. Now it's completely off. But I'm in N mode. I'm in N active sound mode in the N menu, but I'm in eco mode, which is so weird. And then you can go into some mode settings, which adjust everything else but that sound. So now the car is in completely normal mode. The suspension is set to its softest, and it's like a normal Ioniq 5 to drive, maybe a little bit stiffer. I mean, the normal Ioniq 5 is pretty soft and comfortable in its normal setting. This is closer to like a Kia EV6 in its comfort setting, which I don't mind. I prefer the way the EV6 drives to the Ioniq 5 any day of the week. I prefer that car to the normal Ioniq 5. So over a speed bump here is just normal and comfortable, but it is, sporty, it is stiff, it has big wheels, and these Pirelli P0 tires are a bit noisy compared to a normal setup on an Ioniq 5. So there's always a compromise when you want this performance. I'm not complaining about that, I'm just reporting what it is. But with this car, you can also go into normal mode, and then you have a little bit of, that electric car sound, but not a lot, not a lot. But if I go into, press this button, and then I press this button, we're now in what's called manual mode. It doesn't say what mode we're in, but I'm just gonna call it manual mode. And then you can go into these settings here, and then you can, for example, set the interior augmented engine sound to its highest. And then you can use these paddles, which normally are regen, as gear shifts. And it simulates an 8-speed transmission. Now look at this, guys. If I go hit the rev limiter, when I hit the rev limiter, it throws me forward. It's like you're hitting a physical rev limiter. So it's not only the sound they've simulated, it's not only the gear shifts, but also the transmission experience. And when you go off throttle and you shift down, like here, you hear pops and bangs from the rear. That is so funny. When you shift on throttle, it's violent. You feel the shifts like knocking in the next gear. So this isn't only like augmented sound. It's not only simulating, you know, gears. It's also simulating a proper transmission, a proper 8-speed dual clutch transmission, how that behaves, when you're shifting, how you shift, when in a rev range do you shift, how much throttle do you have, and then when you downshift, you get all the bangs. Also, you get an off shifts. You get these farts when you have more throttle, but now I have a bus in front of me. This is an experience like no other. Yes, the car is good to drive. It handles pretty amazing for this type of vehicle. You know, the Hyundai N division is pretty much an evolution of BMW's M division, because back in 2014 when they started it, or 2012, they actually got the guy who, Albert Biermann, who was the guy who had ran M division at BMW for like 2 or 3 decades. So BMW, now a Hyundai N is pretty much BMW M, like literally. So these guys know what they're doing. And this, they haven't just, you know, taken a normal Ioniq 5 and just, you know, given it more powerful motors and given it more, you know, sporty tuning like they did with the Kia EV6 GT, which is a car that's fine. This is completely different. So you have rework suspension with unique components. You have, the car's been braced and welded for extra structural rigidity in 13 different places, making this car 13% or 11% more torsionally rigid than the normal Ioniq 5. It also has a completely different steering rack, which is really what I think makes this car a lot better than the EV6, because the steering in the EV6 GT, nothing to write home about. It feels very artificial. This feels natural. It doesn't have the best feel in the world. It's not like, you know, like a Porsche or maybe Mercedes EQE AMG, but it's pretty darn close. It feels light, it feels precise, and it's just really, really nice. So let's just do an acceleration run here. And then you get the banks on the downshift. It's such a fun experience. This is like nothing else I've driven. A week ago when I picked up this car, I took a friend out. We went for like a 2-hour drive outside of Oslo on these, you know, deserted country mountain roads, like twisty turn canyon roads. You can call them canyon roads. My friend drives motorcycles. He's driven them for his whole life. He's had pretty cool motorcycles like KTMs and Envo Agustas and stuff like that. Maybe even a Ducati. I'm not sure. He's had a lot of cool motorcycles, and he likes to go on these trips. And we took this car on one of the roads he really likes to drive, and we're both so impressed of the composition of this car, the body control, just how it drives, and also this experience. Yes, it's false. This simulated sound is a recording of Hyundai N's 2-liter turbo engine they have like in the i30N and the Elantra N. So it's not real. It's pumped through the speakers. But it's done so in a way which tricks your brain with the gear shifts, because it's not only simulating, you know, the gears, it's simulating an actual internal combustion engine, where now we're at 30 kilometers an hour, 4th gear. If I put my foot to the pedal, to the floor, it actually just, you feel the lag. There's no power there at all because you're at low revs. And then you get this hum. Like, if you've ever driven a manual transmission car, you know that when you're at low revs, high gears, and You press the throttle, you just hear this like resonance, this bassy sound in the cabin, and you do that here also. It's just like a one-to-one simulation. Is it perfect? No. Do I care? No, because it's so fun. And if this is the future of performance electric cars, I'm all for it. Seriously, guys, this is an experience that has made me really reconsider my Porsche Macan Turbo order. Because no doubt that Macan is going to be a more luxurious car, a higher quality product, it's probably going to be even better to drive, but it's twice the price with pretty much the same performance. 641 horsepower, 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 3.4 seconds, top speed 260 kilometers an hour. That's what the Porsche does, pretty much. But that Porsche is not going to have this augmented experience, this simulation of an internal combustion engine car, which I really like. I really like it. And all of my friends have found it pretty cool. Even a friend of mine who is really into cars, when I first took him for a trip, he's like, is that sound pumped in by the speakers? And I'm like, dude, this is an EV. And he's like, it's an electric car? He was like, yeah, I saw you charging it the other day, but I thought maybe it was like a hybrid or something. No, it's a full EV. So yeah, let's hop to the conclusion and I'll tell you guys what I think. I know it's fake. I know that the sounds are recordings of an internal combustion engine car and it's pumped through the speakers. You hear pops and bangs from the rear speakers, you hear the engine noise from the front speakers. It's a full surround experience. You feel the bass, you feel the exhaust sounds, and you also have the simulated gear shifts where it hits a rev limiter and you're lurched forward. If you're on throttle and you shift up too quickly, it smacks the next gear into the next cogs into the next gear. It's all so convincing. At the same time, you hear it's fake. I mean, the sounds are a bit weird sometimes at low revs, sometimes at high revs, and you may be thinking, why don't you just go out and buy an internal combustion engine car? Why don't you just go out and buy a performance car instead of an electric car pretending to be one? Well, there are a few answers to that question. There's no doubt that the world is moving from internal combustion, from fossil fuels to electric cars. That is inevitable. We're on that path. And here in Norway, more than 90% of new cars sold in 2024 are electric cars. So we're not going back in this country. And a lot of countries in Europe and in the world are moving towards this. And a lot of people's contention with electric cars is that you're going to lose that experience, that sound, that emotion. But this car proves that you can have both. You can have an electric car that's just an EV on a day-to-day basis if you want to go for a long trip. When I've been testing this car for efficiency, I've been running it in eco mode completely silent and I've been enjoying it. It's a nice car. It's an Ioniq 5, one of the best electric cars currently on sale. It charges fast, it's relatively efficient-ish, not the most efficient, but it's roomy, it's spacious, it's comfortable, it's quiet, it's a nice car to live with. But on the flip side, you have this raw performance experience. And this is just the first iteration. This is as bad as this car is going to be. There are going to be OTA updates that are going to make this experience even better. Maybe you can download and buy different engine sounds and experiences. So yeah, my only complaint about this car is, well, the efficiency, which is one thing. Go watch my range test and long trip test for that. But also, this has an external speaker, which you can turn on and off. And I'm going to play some drive-by audio for you guys now so you probably can hear what it sounds like. But it's not loud enough. I think the exterior sound should be even louder, as loud as it is on the interior. On the interior, it's pretty loud. You can dial it up and down. There are like 20 different volume settings. but at the loudest, it's a lot louder inside than it is on the exterior. And I wish that you could buy that as a package or something. So I really, really love this car. This gives me an experience that I haven't had in any other electric car. And I've driven a lot of high performance electric cars lately. And I own a Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo, and I have a Macan Turbo on order that I think I'm gonna cancel and get one of these instead. So let me know if you want me to do that, and also let me know if you want me to take this on some kind of European road trip, because I'm really hyped to take this maybe down to the Nürburgring, somewhere in Germany, to the south of France, somewhere to have a real experience with this, the Ioniq 5N, which I absolutely love. I think this is my favorite electric car at the moment. And I went into this with really high expectations, and I think that says everything. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please drop me a thumbs up down below. And for more car content, as always, please subscribe. See you guys later, and goodbye.